So we're gonna paint Votann, and this one here, this is the most popular one. It's one of the, I think, flashiest of the Votann scheme is the Trans-Hyperian something. Trans-Hyperian Alliance, and it is orange and black. And it's a very striking one, which is one reason why I love it. I know a lot of people love it. Orange used to be a very big problem, but thanks to the contrast paint and this metal called the slap chop, we can get like a very, very good army in no time. So that's what we're gonna go for here. And this technique is very cool. Does not need an airbrush to do this. So to get to this state here, this is kind of pre-done because it's kind of boring to watch, but you just, it's the slap chop method if you have not seen this around. So you prime black and then you dry brush gray and you dry brush white to like your liking. So this one is heavy on the white. I like it a lot, like so. But you can go, you know, lighter than this if you want to get like darker shadows and everything. But what it does is it keeps a lot of the darkness in the shadows because our model has like a lot of the darkness still showing through. So we'll get started, and we need I think 5 colors for all of this, which are all 5 contrasts. You have the speed paints, you can probably use the speed paints, but I like this. I think it's the best way to do orange known to man. So we'll start with basically we'll start with kind of like dressing our models here. So first we'll do the skin because that's kind of the deepest part. So I picked Fire Slayer. Fire Slayer is the darker one, so this guy is going to be you know, it's not going to be like a mountain dweller or whatever. He's going to have a dark skinned dwarf. I like it, and also, you know, it's a dwarf name, Fire Slayer Flesh. And we'll just get right to it. The only drawback with this technique is that you have to be somewhat neat, which is, if you've seen other tutorials, is something we don't do a lot. I like the technique where I can mess up a little bit. When working with like the slap chop and the contrast and stuff, it's a lot harder to do. I mean, it's just as easy to do, sorry, but you need to be concise and precise and not too gung-ho with your colors. So not a lot of flesh on this guy. Next up, we'll move straight to black. Lots of black. So there are 2 available. I like Black Templar. Black Legion is a lot like more potent. Not the biggest fan of it. I think it's a little bit too dark for most of what I'm interested in. I think maybe if you use like straight white primer, probably good. Overall, I like what Black Templar does. So we'll start with this one, so we can do the calm piece on his ears and stuff. But because this is also a speed painted model, we want to use that black again some other places. So the mustache and the eyebrows will do brown. And with just like one coat, we get like this very nice color. And if you want like a much darker tone, just dry brush less white, you know. It's very, very straightforward. Like which dry brush, which is like the simplest thing ever, has like the most impact on this. Because it's really how much you dry brush and then the choice of contrast that you make. So the only color I'm not really interested in doing now in this technique are the metallics. So all these metallic spots, like the little vent over there, or the belt buckle, maybe parts of this big like backpack like reactor thing that we want to keep in metallics, we're not gonna do with any contrast. We're just gonna repaint. It's not because we started with this like slap chop technique that we need to stick to it. Like, I like metallics the old-fashioned way. I think they look a lot better than trying to contrast them. So we're not gonna contrast them, you know. I think a lot of people they see like the slap chop and they like full commit. They have to do it. For now, it doesn't matter. Maybe we change our mind later. We'll paint it classic. Maybe you want to leave one piece here orange. I think maybe the bulk of the gun. So yeah, so far, you know, like nothing very complicated here. This is just a matter of being neat, right? So we have to take our time. If you want to play the game and you don't really care about painting, or just want to get like nice models on the board without like too much hassle, I think this is a really great. Everybody can do this. So I go kind of fast at this. I'm kind of proficient with my brush. Take your time if you're doing this. You don't have to rush. The technique is insanely fast, so you don't have to be fast. The technique is, so you know, it saves time for you. You don't have to rush through anything. We're doing 3 kinds. This one here is the Trans-Hyperian Alliance. So the black is done. Now let's move straight into the brown. And the reason we'll do brown now is because the brown is kind of like intertwined with the black, right? So we'll save the orange for last. Brown, I like Wildwood. Wildwood is my favorite. It's dark. I like it the most, but it's dark. I think Cygor is the most common one. It's kind of the middle ground. And Gore Grunt of Fur is like very orange. So we'll do belt, holster, and pouches that way, and then gloves, boots. And again, we're not really sweating the metallics at this stage. So next up, we are good to go for the orange. Now, orange, we're going to use Magmadroth Flame. This stuff is potent, okay? So you have to do light coats or thin it down with contrast medium. Otherwise, it will be like too strong. Take our time here, and I'm trying to leave the big plate open because that is white in the original scheme. And this is kind of the place where you have to think a little bit ahead of like what you want in what color. But once you do a couple, it becomes like really easy because they're all a little bit the same thing, or same spot, the same spot, right? So every time you do those, you know, oh, the shoulder plate is gonna stay white. So you can plan also your dry brush accordingly. So the important thing when doing this is also to think about the 3D aspect. So for example, in the shoulder plates here, if we can zoom in like extreme close-up style, here we need to do like the sides as well. Otherwise, the sides are gonna stay kind of like white with our dry brush color, and then it kind of ruins the effect that we got here. And then we'll come with like a purple in like the regular kind of scheme, with regular paint to do the lights and the button and whatnot. Because then we can make glow effects on a couple of things, and it will look much better if we do them. So now is a good moment. Now we would kind of be done with the contrast part of this model, right? Unless we want to do the white with the contrast, which we can. But now we would be done with the contrast part, so it's a good time to kind of revisit and look at it and go, do I want to add stuff on there with the contrast? And we'll use Apothecary White. It's a very great one. It was my favorite contrast, the first one I tried, because it keeps some of the shading, but it just turns it like into this light gray shading, which I just love. Like so. And then there was just this one other little slip, and then maybe we'll add some of the black to the backpack, because the backpack right now is very bland. Because really the only color we would like to do now is just do silver and then a shade, right? And then obviously finish up the little details. So now we'll move to silver. So we're just gonna redo our metallics here. Votann's an interesting army because there's a, oh no, put a pin in there. I just saw you cannot expect to play a BDE squad army without having to paint a couple of jockstrap. We'll do the silver now. Just again, speed painting, right? So we're doing one coat and then of silver. That's why I like Lead Belcher, because one coat covers anything. And this is also a great area where if you work on like a lot of models at the same time, you never have to really worry about like, is it going to be dry when I get next to it, right? Like right now doing these parts next to the orange, maybe it's not dry, so we have to be very careful, because then our metallic kind of mixes up with the contrast and that ruins something really fast. But again, if we were doing this in the real sense, not for YouTube, right, we'd be doing like the entire maybe army's worth, like all 30 of these little dudes. Because when I play them, they have 30. In my army list, there's 30 of these. We could do the revolver here, but since the other gun is already non-metallic, we don't need to do extra metallics. So I'm pretty happy with this. Next, we'll do one final step here on this model. And again, you can have a couple more steps if you want to. If you don't want to go like the full speed painted route, you know. We'll need 2 steps actually. First one is purple. We'll use Nagara Knight. I like that one. And I like purple because purple and orange are kind of a very, very contrasting. So if we had a visor, we'd do the visor with this color as well. This guy's a face, but if we had the space lander, the purple here. So there's not a lot. There's just like the visor here, and then and then we'll highlight this with a Xeris purple or whatever lilac color of whatever kind that you like. Just a light purple. Doing some other stuff, but if we were careful, we could have contrasted this, and it would have been perfect. And now, last step is null oil, and we will null oil the metallics, all of those metallics. Boop. This is pretty fast. I don't know exactly the time because I didn't notice when we started, but I would think that this is much less than 30 minutes. Fall model, which I'm very fond of in terms of like gaming pieces like this, where we want to do a quick job. Less than 30 minutes for an infantry piece is just fine. And then the last thing that we can do, again, this is like kind of the optional part here. So I'm not too much of a fan of the gun. Like you can see the gun is kind of like spotty, right? Because it's a big flat surface. So instead of like adding just another coat of contrast, I want to make something a little bit more interested on it. So what I'll do is we'll pick Incubi Darkness. We could pick purple as well to do this, but I like Incubi Darkness. So it's a blue-green color. And we'll just dry brush the gun because first of all, it's not going to be complicated, right? And second of all, it will take care of this like kind of a spotty and weird texture that we got going on, and we'll add something interesting to it. There we go. Now our gun has like something just a little bit interesting just to break it. And now, very last step, we have a base here. We'll use this one. This is kind of I wanted to do a lunar thing. It doesn't look like it. There's some texture on there. Just it didn't come out as I planned. But I like the moon texture that they give these models. I think it looks nice. So we'll just add an extra dry brush of lighter gray here. And we can use some of our blue from before, right? Some of that like Incubi Darkness mixed in there. And we'll just bring a couple of like interesting shades to our base. I'm hoping it kind of picks up the texture a little bit. Ever so slightly, but that's okay. Like the moon is not the most like textured thing to begin with, right? So not our best base. I'll be the first one to admit, but I like the color of it though. I think the color is spot on. So we'll remove this guy, and now put this guy on its brand new moon base. Took him off an impossible to remove base, and I'm gonna stick him onto an even harder to remove base. Go, and as you guys know, one thing I love more in this world than a black line is a good old-fashioned rim job. So we'll do the rim here on this model. I think those will be our two next Twitch emotes. Is one for black line and one for rim job, because those are actually I have to read if rim job is like in the TOS from Twitch, possibly not allowed. So Terek the First, our new little space dwarf. So this is like a 30-ish minutes, and we could have done like a lot of these guys. This is the most like most common little like scheme, I think, and you also get like a very vibrant orange if you want to. So pretty fast, pretty straightforward, and gets you a popping army. Like you can see this army from a mile away. So I'm really happy with this.